Moin Moin and welcome everyone. In this video, I want to talk about how to be successful when you start a Shopware project with basically zero prior knowledge of Shopware. For this video, I talked to Radu Babu. Radu is a technical project lead and solution architect at Arnia Software, and he recently, starting early 2024, led a 7-month Shopware implementation project that was highly customized. And you guessed it, his team had no prior experience with Shopware. So my first question to Radu was, why Shopware at all? He himself is not at all a newbie in the field of e-commerce. He worked with Magento and Magento 2 since 2011. His beginning in software development was even before that, in 2003, which is 4 years before the first iPhone, just to put that into perspective, right? Anyway, imagine getting into a new project and choosing a software you never worked with before. Of course, my first question was, why? His answer was simple. The client wanted it.
Ask the client. I mean, the way the team was structured, for us, it was clear that we are going to do it with Magento. But then there were some discussions and we chose Shopware. And I think there are some important aspects when you make this decision. I think the most important reason was they wanted to be highly customizable by operational people, so not by developers.
So the client liked the no-code approach that Shopware offers and had already tried a Magento project with another team, which didn't work out as planned. Cost played a big role. The total cost of ownership with Shopware was more attractive, both for the development phase and for maintaining the shop later on. The project itself was a migration from an old patchwork e-commerce system. It was a collection of legacy applications, all loosely connected, running on outdated PHP 7.4, and impossible to upgrade without breaking things. If you have ever worked with such a codebase, you know what it's like. Everything feels held together by duct tape and prayers. So the challenge was clear. Rebuild everything in Shopware with zero prior knowledge of Shopware and meet all the custom requirements. And to make it even trickier, finding ready-to-go Shopware experts on the market wasn't really an option. But how did it feel to go into such a project with so little experience with the underlying software?
It was an opportunity. I always like a challenge, and when they told us, "Hey, we're going to build it with Shopware," one way would have been to, "Oh, why are we using Shopware? We are a bunch of Magento developers. Why are we using that?" But I mean, I got the message, and I say, "Hey, this is a really nice opportunity to explore another e-commerce framework, a newer name in the market, comparing to Magento." And then I started looking into it. I was really curious.
When Radu introduced Shopware to his team, who were all Magento experts, he was upfront about it. The client knew there would be a learning curve and the team would need time to ramp up. Of course, some developers were hesitant at first. That's natural. When you're comfortable with a tool, like switching to something new always feels slower and harder at the start. The important part here was that the learning phase was explicitly planned and discussed with the client. They knew the team would need time to figure things out before being able to deliver at full speed. You know, back in early 2024, the Shopware Academy wasn't as extensive as it is today. Also, there was no community hub. So the team used every resource they could find. Shopware's documentation, the Academy, and also the YouTube channel, which had dozens of helpful videos on specific topics. A fun fact, that's actually where Radu first met me. And of course, there's always the ultimate developer resource, the code itself. It is important to learn how to extend Shopware correctly, so you don't create problems for future upgrades of your extension or project. Today, there's the already mentioned Shopware Community Hub, which brings all resources into one place. It didn't exist in this form when Radu's team started, but it would have saved him time just to figuring out where to begin. Learning during the project sounds nice, but my question to Radu was, how do you get the client to pay you for the time your team spends learning new skills?
I mean, you need to define your work, and you need to kind of plan some extra time for that learning curve, which is an acceptable amount of time from the developer perspective, which is never enough, but also from the client's perspective. The best thing that you can do is make sure you define your work correctly, and it's really clear what you have to do, and then based on that, you will target a learning area in a more specific way.
To get the team up to speed, Radu introduced what they called research spikes, focused 4-hour blocks where developers could dig into a specific topic, figure out best practices, and then try to apply what they have learned. After these spikes, the team would meet in open dev talks to share findings and discuss problems. These sessions became so valuable that they increased them from once a week to twice a week, boosting learning speed and also team cohesion. The principle was simple: research, implement, and iterate while sticking to the best practices, even if the solution wasn't perfect. As Radu put it, they weren't Shopware experts, but they wanted to avoid quick hacks, because that would break upgrades later on. Next came the integration. The project had to connect with multiple external systems, a PIM for product data, a CRM for customers and orders, a WMS for warehouse stock, and then shipping services like UPS. To handle all this, they used Alumio, which is an iPaaS solution. iPaaS means Integration Platform as a Service, a platform that acts as a middleman between APIs. But the integration wasn't without challenges. The team ran into synchronization issues like order data arriving before the customer data. So the solution was to switch to a webhook-based approach, letting systems push data when they were ready instead of pulling data. On top of integrations, the team also had to deal with custom extensions. To save time, they first tried to use existing marketplace plugins. That mostly worked, but debugging third-party plugins had its own challenges, especially since plugin developers often requested direct server access, which wasn't possible due to security and infrastructure constraints. As a side note, for an extension developer, getting access to a system where the error occurs often is the only way they can actually debug it. But in this case, that usually normal practice posed the challenge. Their workaround? They built a sandbox environment, a dedicated playground for testing plugins, reproducing bugs, and giving plugin developers access without risking the real development environment. This also gave the business team a safe place to experiment with potential new extensions. Speaking of business team, there was an unforeseen issue with having non-technical people trying out possible extensions that might be useful for the project. Plugins can impact performance, interfere with data flow, or even clash with custom extensions. And while having 50 or 60 plugins installed isn't unusual, it means a lot of overhead. Every update, every compatibility issue, every dependency needs to be monitored and documented. It's not as simple as just install and go. To tackle this, Radu's team came up with a solution to evaluate every extension before it even made it into the project.
So we had the business people testing a plugin for like 30 minutes, and they were telling us, "Hey, I found a great plugin. It does this, and that for me. I'm really excited. Let's install it in the platform." and this is not always the best decision, because this is what I'm saying. Business sees the plugin from a perspective, while we are also looking at, for example, the logs and see some issues there. We had a checklist. It was like I think it had like 9 or 10 steps, which the plugin should check after it is incorporated into our code base. So whenever somebody from the business came to us with a plugin, we told them, hey, nice, this is great.
Radu's plugin validation checklist isn't some secret recipe. It is a collection of solid, general best practices. Of course, every project needs its own tweaks, but having a checklist not only ensures quality, it also helps the business side understand the risks. Without it, they might think the developers are simply being rigid when they push back on installing too many plugins. Now, the devs could just go by the book, and the rules everybody agreed on. Radu's team took this seriously. They created a dedicated Confluence space where every plugin had its own page, complete with the validation, checklist, the reasons for using it, and a short user guide. That way, new team members could quickly understand the system. The key takeaway that Radu had from this project was
are really clear, and you kind of give ownership to each individual and make them comfortable, raise a flag whenever they as soon as they bump into an issue or they are blocked. It's really important, because it's better to find things earlier than later. So then you save time. In our context, we were like really pressured of time, because the project was delivered in 7 months, but the development actually took 3 or 4, because in the first month we were like we were organizing ourselves. We were trying to define some procedures, local environment, the deployment pipeline, blah, blah, blah. All these things that need to happen at the beginning. Then we had like 3 months to develop things while learning. And also the last 2 months were for bug fixing, and also were for launching the actual rollouts.
Radu emphasized in our interview that having clear workflows was key to keeping everyone aligned and productive under a very rigid timeline. Developers could reference these workflows repeatedly during the day to stay on track and understand the project flow. He also stressed the importance of having the right team composition, especially developers with Symfony experience, as that skill set was crucial for delivering results quickly. Just as important was ensuring that every team member felt heard and empowered, fostering collaboration and create problem solving. When reflecting on the project, Radu said he wouldn't change anything fundamental since the project succeeded, but he would implement certain tools earlier, like the plugin validation checklist and the sandbox environment, to save time and avoid blockers. The project itself is now in a state where rolling out to new countries is mostly a matter of configuration, not coding, and which shows how scalable and maintainable their solution is. If you found this video helpful, make sure to check out the accompanying blog post, where Radu dives deeper into the lessons learned from this project. You will find practical takeaways, the plugin validation checklist, and links to the best learning resources for teams starting fresh with Shopware. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a successful first or next project. Thank you.